Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Lake Fork spring bass fishing in 2022. And we're going to give you in-depth reports and tips from multiple Lake Fork guides, trying to give you guys as much info as we can to help y'all all catch more and bigger fish. So y'all stay tuned. I guess we'll have to work on an intro. We don't really have an intro for this series yet, but this is a new series and it's one that I think is going to be helpful to you guys. I know a lot of you guys come to this channel for tips and information and looking just for guidance on how to catch more and bigger fish, and that's what we've always been about, loving our fellow man, helping each other catch more and bigger fish. And I feel like this is a new way to do this. Back in the day, you could go to websites and look at reports from multiple guides in the area, especially on Lake Fork. Sometimes those reports would be real current, sometimes they wouldn't. You know, it was just kind of a hit or miss deal on how current the information you got is. So what we want to do here is start doing a bi-weekly program where we give you guys reports from several guides on the lake that we work with at Your Lake Fork Guide. You know, the big strength to Your Lake Fork Guide has nothing to do with Billy Lawson. It is we work together as a team. We have a team of guides, and we really do try to help each other out, try to make sure that every customer that comes through Your Lake Fork Guide, whether you fish with me or one of our many other great guides, that you guys have the best experience possible. We're going to work as hard as we can. We're going to have the utmost integrity. We're not going to lie to you about how we're catching them or what we're catching. We're not going to lie to you about sizes or weights. We're not going to exaggerate anything or sugarcoat anything. When it's tough, we're going to tell you it's tough. When it's a grind, we'll tell you it's a grind. And when it's good, we'll tell you that it's good. And here lately, it's been pretty good most days, but there is some tough days to be had on Lake Fork, even though it's April. We've dealt with extreme wind this year. We've dealt with some low water conditions, which has changed the way the lake is fished for sure. That being said, we are fortunate, like I said, at Your Lake Fork Guide, you have several guys. And these are some of all the guys that I've met over the years. I've been doing this. I started part-time guiding in 2015, went full-time towards the beginning of 2017. So I've been around the block on Lake Fork a few times now. I've gotten to meet and know a lot of guys. These guys that we're working with now, man, they are the hardest working guys with the utmost integrity, and they've got skills, they've got experience, they've got a lot of time on the water, just multiple lifetimes worth of time on the water between this group of guides that we work with. Today's reports are going to come to you from what I would call our core group, the guys that are the most involved with us at Your Lake Fork Guide. And I can't recommend each one of these guys enough for a guide trip. By the way, if you do ever want to book a guide trip, you can always reach out at yourlakeforkguide.com to book a trip with myself or any of these other guides that you'll see in this series over the upcoming weeks. But today's contributors are going to be David Ozio, Cord Hudkins, Cody Mays, and Vic Pearsall. So you're going to get in-depth reports and tips from 4 different guides. With that being said, let's not hold you up anymore. Let's dig into the meat and potatoes and give you guys the goods on what's going on Lake Fork and a couple other lakes around, because we have had some guys on other lakes in the area because of windy conditions. Sometimes you get novice customers and it's easier to take them to a lake that has more numbers or has fish that are less pressured, not more numbers of fish, but fish that are less pressured than Fork. Sometimes if you have novice customers, it's a lot easier to get them bid and make them have an enjoyable day on a lake that has fish that are less pressured. That's certainly something that we do at Your Lake Fork Guide. We fish other lakes. By the way, just about every guide that I've ever known fishes other lakes at times. So it's a good practice. At the end of the day, you want to make sure your customer has as much fun as he can and gets what he or she wants out of the trip. It has nothing to do with your ego. It has nothing to do with your skills or ability as a fisherman. When you're a guide, your job, in our opinion, is to make sure that person has the best day they can have for their goals for the trip. Many times that's just go out and have a great day and catch some quality fish. Sometimes that means going to another lake for guys that are a little bit novice and don't need to be trying to target those super pressured fish on Lake Fork. One more thing before we get into the report, we're going to show you some fish pictures. Now, when we show you guys pictures of fish, if it's really big, close to 10 pounds, we'll probably put the weight on it. If it's a 10 pounder or over, we'll for sure put a verified weight on it. Most of these fish aren't going to have weights on them. They're just going to be quality fish that you see pictures of. But you're only going to see one picture of each fish. We're not going to do the old guide trick of putting multiple pictures of the same fish throughout the post or throughout the video. We're going to try to have the integrity like we spoke to earlier. All right, so let's start off with Cody Mays. Cody Mays comes in telling us that to fish stumps from 5 foot to the bank using chatterbaits, light Texas rigs, and wacky worms while working your way back into pockets, look for bedfish on the bank. So my man's just going down the bank. He's throwing it from 5 foot deep all the way up to the bank, throwing a chatterbait, light Texas rig, and a wacky worm. He said some fish are spawning out in the 5 foot range. If your bait gets slapped or short struck, slow down and pick that area apart. Just because you don't see a bed doesn't mean there's not one there. So if you're getting short struck, you might want to be a little bit, make several casts back into that area. Might pick up a bed fish that nobody's able to see. That's always a bonus fish right there that people just aren't usually going to catch. On the chatterbait, Cody's throwing a Beehite Delight colored jackhammer chatterbait with a green pumpkin paddle tail trailer. On the Texas rig, he's using black and blue or watermelon red 6 cent stroker crawls. Great bait, 6 cent stroker crawl. By the way, any of the 6 cents baits that we mentioned in our reports, you can find those at 6centsfishing.com, which is linked in the description, and you can use our code YourLakeFortGuide. It'll save you 10% on all orders. On the wacky, he's using a black and blue or methiolate in the 6 cents clout. So that's like a little 5-inch stick bait. The 6 cents makes a clout stick bait, black or blue or methiolate. Fish can also be caught on main lake points or secondary points with a C-rig, swim baits, or a shaky head. Now, Cody did not include this in here, but I'm going to add this because I think he would agree with me here. The wind-blown points are the best ones, guys. If you're going to fish those points, and we're fishing these points pretty shallow, most of us are, really shallow at times, you're going to want to fish the windier points are the ones you want. Next up, we got Vic Pearsall coming through. Now, Vic's doing things a little bit different. And this doesn't surprise me, guys, because Vic says he's catching fish on points in 15 to 20 foot of water on Carolina rigged ridge worms. That's another 6 cents bait. The color is plum fleck. Okay. It doesn't surprise me that we got fish out in 15 to 20 foot of water. A lot of these fish, some of these fish, a small wave started spawning around the new moon at the beginning of March. We're now in mid-April, going on into late April now. We also had a big wave come in at the end of March, early April with the full moon. And a new moon in the beginning of April. So there's plenty of fish that have actually finished spawning. Lake Fork is about 6 foot low right now. There's really no vegetation in the lake to speak of. There's some here and there, but not much, right? With that being the lake conditions, those fish that are done spawning really don't have anywhere to kind of hang out shallow. Then they got some stumps and some docks. Half the docks are out of the water. So a lot of these fish are going to immediately transition back to deeper water offshore in that 15 to 20 foot range. So good catch on Vic being out there early when nobody else is really out there fishing for those. Little tip for you guys, there's some lesser pressured fish on Lake Fork out in 15 to 20 foot of water already being caught on Carolina rig with a ridge worm and plum fleck. Vic is also fishing shallow. He says he's fishing wacky rigs, Senkos in Texas smoke 1 to 4 foot around tree stumps and edges of grass. He's also swimming a swim jig in a shad color with white crawl in the shallow areas as well. And he's sight fishing a little bit from the bank out to about 3 foot of water where the clarity allows him to do so. He's using a Texas rig, white stroker crawl from 6 cents, and he's painting red gills on there, basically drawing them with a red marker, drawing red gills on the white stroker crawl. Vic's doing things a little bit different. A lot of times that's the way to do it on Fork. All right, let's move on down to Cord Hudkins, our guy that moved here from Oklahoma last year, has been guiding on the lake for about a year. But the dude has tons of experience fishing across country in different tournament trails and things like that. Really good guy, really good fisherman. Fishing shallow on the windblown banks with shad in the area. So he's looking for signs of shad on windblown banks. Shad spawn, guys. Shad spawn's starting to happen. That's what he's targeting here. He's throwing white or white and chartreuse chatterbaits. Makes sense. Half-ounce Colorado blade spinnerbaits. Makes sense. Half-ounce trap and a 4 to 6 inch swim bait in white or natural colors. That is shad spawn, guys. That's what that is. He's throwing a variety of shad replicating baits in areas that are windblown that he's seeing shad in, okay? That is going to be a shad spawn type deal. That is going to primarily happen earlier in the day for the most part, but can happen in spurts throughout the day. That can be an awesome pattern where you catch them real fast in a hurry when you hit it at the right time. On the calmer or post-front days, when it gets tougher, Cord is fishing the same areas, but still staying around the bait. And the best baits is throwing a light weighted wacky worm. So he's actually got one of the weighted wacky worm hooks. Texas rig weightless Senko style worm with a blade in the tail or nail weight in the tail. So he's tail weighting a Senko on a weightless Texas rig. Soft plastic colors are anything green pumpkin or watermelon with red or gold flake. That gold flake, that's top secret stuff right there. Gold flake is a don't tell nobody deal on your green baits, your watermelons and your green pumpkins. It's gold flake's really good. At times you can run points and pick up a few with Carolina rig, Impact Shad, and Smoke or the Cali Magic Color. So Cord is running some of those shallow wind blow points as well, just like Cody was. No surprise there. Everybody on the lake's pretty much doing it. The deal with those, you got to get your timing right, guys. All right, next we're going to look at David Ozio's report. Now, David's probably the best writer. He's definitely the best writer. So this will be worded better than the rest of us old dumb fishing guides. David's got like some edification somewhere or something. Old David is a great, great guy. Probably, and especially considering his age, and I give David a hard time about being old, but he is older. And still, this guy's like the hardest working dude I know, man. He's unbelievable how he grinds after these fish on multiple different lakes. And David's going to give us a multi-lake report here, so listen up. David says, I look at forks sizably different than most. For the experienced anglers with great casting skills, especially on our super windy days, we have been throwing a half-ounce jackhammer chatterbait in Spicy Crawl with a Lake Fork Tackle Magic Shad trailer in Watermelon Red. Have caught them up to 9 pounds recently using this tactic. When the wind slacks up, we target stumps in 3 to 6 foot of water with a drop shot using anything red or a shaky head with Watermelon Red cutter tail worm. I think that's a Strike King product, the cutter tail. Red anything trick worms also are catching their share. So there you go. That's the Lake Fork report. Now David says, for the novice anglers, I head over to one of the power plant lakes, Lake Welsh, Martin Creek, Brandy Branch, those lakes. Those fish are going to be a little further along. And he has his customers throw a swim jig, 5-inch swim bait, or a chatterbait, all of which are Watermelon Red based. Water is much clearer in these locations and cloudy days are best. On sunny days with less wind, the Wacky Worm or Texas rig can't be beat. So there's some reports from David Ozio from both our power plant lakes as well as Lake Fork itself. Phenomenal job by these guys. I can't thank them enough. We're going to get reports from them consistently. I'm going to try to reach out and get reports from other guides as well. This is basically going to be a place you guys can come every 2 weeks on Saturday and check out a detailed report about what's going on at Lake Fork in our area, Texas lakes. And we just, at the end of the day, man, we don't want nothing out of it. We sincerely hope that this helps you guys catch more and bigger fish, because the more and bigger fish you guys catch, the more excited you get about fishing, the more you take your buddies and the more you take your kids and you know whoever you take, they get excited about fishing when they catch them. It just helps grow our sport. And at the end of the day, we could all sit here and argue and fight with each other over guide customers or fishing holes or whatever. But my philosophy is, always has been, and always will be, instead of fighting each other and trying to get a piece of this dude's pie, how about we just grow the pie? Let's make the pie bigger. We'll all eat better. And that's what we want to do. We want you guys to fall in love with this sport because it's done so much for each and every one of us. I know for me, speaking for me specifically, fishing has changed and altered and in some ways kind of saved my life. And that's a long story and a lot of stories to get into. We don't have time for that today. Maybe someday I'll share that with you guys. But this sport is very, very special to me. It means a lot. And so I want you guys to get some of the same enjoyments and quality of life that I've gotten out of fishing. So hope this helps. Thank you guys so much for watching, as you always do, man. We don't have the biggest audience, but we do have the best. That's because of each and every one of you, man. Thank y'all so much. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this. If you want to see more of them, drop me a comment. Please do subscribe. Turn the notifications on to make sure you don't miss our next video right here at your Lake Fork Guide.